Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. By the way, GunGuyTV is now available on all those places, not just YouTube, so check them out and subscribe. The reason I'm talking to you now is to, I'm just going to tell you right now, I really had to wait until I calmed down to do this video. This is about Mark J Bennett, who is Donald Trump's nominee for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. This all came out recently. I realize the nomination's been going on for a while, but the problem is when you work for a living like I do, I've been, I've been on the range all day teaching. I'll be on the range all day tomorrow teaching. I'll be on the range on Thursday teaching. I'll be Saturday. I'll be up in Orange County teaching. You know, it's a full-time job having a full-time job, and I don't do YouTube for a living, and so I don't have, I only have so many hours to spend on it. And like most people who work for a living, I can't keep abreast of these things like I would like to. And guess what? Mark J Bennett's nomination sort of crept up on me, and I found out about it, I think the day before Mother's Day or something. Anyway, and then of course there's some YouTubers that have posted on it. I think the guy from Guns and Gadgets is the name of his channel, posted a video on it, which was very informative. Neat guy, by the way. I like his channel a lot. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. You should subscribe to it if you haven't already. He posted about it as well. And then I've been urged to say something about it by a couple of subscribers, and I didn't want to say anything until I had researched it a little bit and until I had tried to contact some Second Amendment organizations to see what their thoughts were on the guy, because I don't know. I'm not an expert about this stuff, and I'm not a professional lobbyist, and I'm not a professional journalist or any of those other things. Well, here's what I found out. First of all, Mark Bennett is a judge who was at one time soon to be a judge, I guess, on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, but he was at one point the Attorney General of Hawaii. He is supposedly, I guess, a Republican. From what I read, he's donated to the Republican Party and like that. Not that that means anything to me. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I vote nonpartisan. I vote for the people I think fit my beliefs, and the heck with them. I don't care whether they have a D or an R next to their name. But nevertheless, apparently he's got some Republican connections there. And then, of course, in Hawaii, the two senators there, I think, are both Democrats, and they like him because he's a quote-unquote moderate. And I think probably Donald Trump picked him because it was easy to get their support because he's a moderate. But here's the problem with the guy where the Second Amendment is concerned. He's got a long history of not being particularly friendly to the Second Amendment. In 2008, when the District of Columbia case was being settled in Heller, he actually wrote against it, urging that it not be found to be the Second Amendment right outside to have a gun in your home, but instead, and not to strike down the ban in D.C., because he felt that that stating and codifying in law that the Second Amendment couldn't be infringed upon would be wrong. Now, he didn't use the word infringed, but that's nevertheless was his opinion, and apparently it remains his opinion today. Now, he's a little unusual as a court picks for district court and like that are concerned. He's 65, I think, or 66 years old, and most of the people are picking 40-year-olds and whatever because it's a lifetime appointment. Once you get the job, you got the job until you either choose to retire or you die. That's basically it. So if he gets on the court, he's going to be there until he's dead, probably, or until he decides to retire. But you're looking at, probably 20 years sitting on the court, this quote-unquote moderate who is not a friend of the Second Amendment on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. All right, here's my problem with this, in case you didn't already know. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is the most overturned circuit court in the nation. They are decidedly unfriendly to the Second Amendment. It is the place where pro-Second Amendment lawsuits go to die. So we have all these organizations, gun organizations, that want money from us so they can file lawsuits in the state of California and within the purview of the Ninth Circuit, knowing full well that if they win, they're going to go to the Ninth Circuit and be overturned anyway, and the Supreme Court's not going to hear them because the Supreme Court is useless. The Supreme Court has not heard a Second Amendment case that I'm aware of since, 2008. That's a decade. This is 2018. Hello? They just turned down one the other day. They turned down the Peruta case, which was, talk about a case that was stacked in the Second Amendment favor. That would have been a great case for them to hear, but they turned it down. That Supreme Court just isn't going to hear them. And so you know that if you have an opportunity to make changes to the Ninth Circuit, you need to make them because the opportunity is not going to last long. Well, right now there are several vacancies in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And for whatever crazy reason other than politics, I don't know, Donald Trump has decided to appoint Mark J. Bennett, who is a moderate who has ruled against and written against the Second Amendment, I don't know, many times, I guess, but at least once or twice or three times, enough that I'm convinced that he's not a Second Amendment-friendly justice. Why on God's green earth would we put him on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals? That doesn't change the face of the court. It replaces a liberal with a liberal. That's basically all they're doing. Now, here's the thing that really irritates me about it. One, it irritates me that the president has appointed him. I get the politics of it, but nevertheless, stand up and let's see if we can get make some changes to that court. It desperately needs changes, and you've got one opportunity to do it. Mark Bennett is not a change. That's status quo. Here's the other thing. I know it's status quo. You know it's status quo. I didn't hear anything from Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners of California, the California Rifle and Pistol Association, the National Rifle Association. Some of these organizations in particular, and I hate to pick on one, but in particular, I have seen Larry Platts, whatever his name is, face all over the news for months about the bump stock. Bump stock, bump stock, bump stock. Look, I don't want the bump stock banned either. I don't want one. I don't have any need for one. I don't care if I ever own one, but I don't like the slippery slope. But I got to tell you, I've never seen the guy on television anywhere talking about this nomination to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And yes, I called it the Ninth Circus for a reason. Where's the indignation? Where's the outrage? Where's the call to arms? And I don't mean, firearms. I mean the call to arms from the standpoint of calling your senator, contact Mitch McConnell, and make a noise to prevent this guy from being appointed to the court for life. I don't see Gun Owners of America doing that. I don't see Dana Lausch, or however she says her name, all over the web talking about that. I don't see Wayne LaPierre going to the Sunday shows and interviews and talking about that. I don't see anybody calling about anything. In fact, I contacted a couple of these organizations today because I wanted to find out if they knew anything. I contacted organizations in California, which I support, and they didn't even know who the guy was. They didn't have any information about him at all. Now, you'd think they're in California and they're supposed to be Second Amendment advocates. They'd know who the joker was, but they didn't. They had no idea. And then when I contact the national organizations, and yes, that includes Gun Owners of America, what do I get? They did absolutely nothing. They didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, they talked about it among themselves in their little meetings. Yeah, they brought it up to the people that they know and the Senate, committee. But the guy was well liked. One of the excuses I got back was, well, everybody likes him, and they passed him out of committee, and only 2 senators voted against him, and yeah, he's going to slide right on through. There's really nothing we can do about it. One of the responses I got said, well, I guess if we were going to do something about it, we should have done it a while ago. But, it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to send a letter of opposition up to the Hill. Like that's going to do anything. That's a feckless, pointless, meaningless act. Except for one thing, so that later on they can tell you and I that they opposed it, which they didn't, and ask for more money. And say, well, the reason why you got through is we didn't have enough money. You got to send us more money. Look, I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of being bled dry for money and then treated like a redheaded stepchild because I happen to be in California. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is the worst, most anti-gun court in the land, period. And since nothing gets passed into the Supreme Court, we don't have a Second Amendment right in California. We have a Second Amendment privilege. I live in the PSRK, the People's Socialist Republic of Californistan. And I was hoping that we could maybe make some changes to that court. And this is very, very disheartening, I got to tell you. And the fact that the gun rights organizations have done absolutely nothing about it is extremely disheartening. So here's the deal. You and I cannot expect these gun organizations to do this because they're not gonna. They're going to fight the battles that they feel like fighting, and some of them they're not going to fight, and they're going to go, shh, don't tell anybody. I'll give credit where credit is due. I did see it on the Facebook page of the Firearms Policy Coalition, but it was nothing more than a hook to fundraise. I don't think it did anything beyond that, but at least they mentioned it. And I've seen a little bit on the news, but I haven't seen Second Amendment organizations rail against it. I haven't seen them get a call to action to get people to contact the Senate. They got millions of members, but they didn't use them. I know, because I'm a life member of the National Rifle Association. I'm a life member of the Second Amendment Foundation. I'm a member of Gun Owners California. I'm a member of the National Shooting Sports Foundation. I had pledged and will, because I pledged I would, pledge to be a life member of the Gun Owners of America and the California Rifle and Pistol Association by the end of this year. And as frustrated and angry as I am with them, since I made the pledge, I will do it. But if you're part of any of those organizations, I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever come on my show again, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and you better have an answer to both of them, because if you don't, you won't appear on this show. What did you do about this nomination? And if the answer is nothing, the next question is, what are you going to do about the next one? Because this is the last liberal that shows up on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals during Donald Trump's tenure. Last time. If this guy makes it, which he probably will, it'll be the last one. But I'm going to do everything I can to stop it, and I urge you to do the same. But if he gets through, you know what? We're going to pay attention from now on. You gun rights organizations are not going to treat us like red-headed stepchildren anymore, or like little kids that you can ignore, or little people that you can kind of wink and nod and ignore a serious issue like this and then ask us for money on the other side. I'm tired of that garbage. I really, really am. So if you think this is a rant, that's because it is. All right, now here's what the rest of us who are actually Second Amendment advocates and want to do something about it can do. I'm going to follow the Guns and Gadgets guy's lead. I'm going to put the number for the Senate switchboard up on the screen and in the description so you can call and ask Mitch McConnell urgently to oppose this nomination. I'm also going to put a link up there so you can figure out who your senator is. If you don't know who they are, call your senators. Even if they're useless like mine are, call them anyway. Then I'm also going to put the phone number for the National Rifle Association, the California Rifle and Pistol Association, Gun Owners of America, and Gun Owners of California on the website, or on the description rather. And I urge you to call each and every one of them and express the depth and breadth of your disappointment in the fact that they did absolutely nothing to oppose this nomination other than talk. And if they tell you they did more than that, you know what? I would demand to see it, because I ain't seen it. I've searched all over the place and I can find nothing except the one little mention I mentioned on the Facebook page of the Firearms Policy Coalition. And that was a fundraising tool. I've seen nothing else. I've seen a couple news stories about it, but that's it. Nothing by the gun organizations. And that needs to change. The next time there's one of these nominations, the gun organizations need to be all over it. And they need to know from you and I, the people who send them money, the people who support them, the people who do their best to show up when they need us to show up, that if they don't get with it, they will lose our support. I'm not going to sit here and watch them waste this opportunity to change that court, because if we don't change that court, we will never get our Second Amendment back in the state of California. And I'm telling you what, I'm happy to fight the battle, but I don't get paid to do this. I do this because I'm passionate about it. I guarantee you the Guns and Gadgets guy, William at the Daily Shooter, they can say the same thing. I don't make money on YouTube. If anything, it costs me money to produce the show. I'm very grateful for your support on Patreon and other places, and I'm not making light of it. It's very important because it helps. But the truth is, every month, this thing costs me money. I make my living teaching. I make my money through Practical Defense Systems. I don't make it on YouTube. This is this is something I do to be passionate. But those folks at those gun organizations, we're paying their salaries. This is what they do for a living. For them to ignore this is offensive to me in the extreme. I'm absolutely appalled. I'm stunned. And I'm not going to let it happen again. You know, what is that old movie with the guy opens up the window and says, I'm mad as heck and I'm not going to take it anymore? Well, I'm mad as heck and I'm not going to take it anymore. Look for those numbers in the description. I urge you, make the phone calls. Visit these folks on social media. They all have social media accounts. I didn't even know that till the Guns and Gadgets guy said so, but apparently they do. I don't use it very well, but I'm going to try. I'm certainly making the phone calls. And I'll tell you something. I'm going to call these gun rights organizations and I'm going to let them know that they are on notice. They need to make sure that we know about these things in the future, and they better darn well do something about them and not ignore them. I told myself when I walked in here this wasn't going to be a rant, and it turned out to be one. I apologize for that, but this really ticks me off. Thank you, sir, very much for your support. Thank you for your passion about the Constitution and your support of the Second Amendment. I'm very, very grateful. Have a great week. Please do call all those numbers. Join me in doing that. Be safe.